Welcome back to the Week 3 edition of my weekly NFL Pick'em. So Week 2 came, injured, and conquered just about every NFL team to some degree. We all predicted that Week 1 was going to be a high injury week of football, but we were off just a week. And it actually makes a lot of sense that the fatigue from Week 1 came back to bite guys in the butt, or the hamstring, or the shoulder, you name it. I had a much better week last week with the picks, but I forgot to enter the picks into the ESPN Pick'em. I would have gotten 14 points. I was able to jump in on Monday before the Monday night game, and at least enter in one pick, which ended up being one of the wrong picks I made of the week. So yeah, but we literally dropped the lowest week of the season for this reason, in case you forget, but 14 points is a lot to miss out on. I'll recap the whole Pick'em group at the end. If you want to join, it's not too late. There's a link in the description and in the pinned comment. It's on the ESPN fantasy app, so if you already got fantasy football on there, you can join straight through that. Just search for NFLRT. And there are 2 more Madden codes hidden within this video. They've all been going within the first 30 minutes of this video being in the premiere. The guys last week let me know one of their secrets, so I used their strategy against them, and I'm gonna make this even harder than it's been thus far. The goal in this video is 1,000 likes. Please hit that like button as soon as you can. These videos are only relevant for a few days, so those likes really help this channel grow. And this week's wallpaper of the week is going to be none other than Kyler Murray. Remember, these are all posted on TikTok, but TikTok's having some issues right now with allowing all the videos to be downloaded. So you can check out the TikTok. I'd love it if you went there and followed, but if for some reason it doesn't allow you to download it there, I will be uploading these to my Jiffy account, and the link will be in the same place, and it's actually a much easier process to download. And you just download it as a live photo, set it as your wallpaper on your phone, and you're good to go. Let's get into these week 3 games. On Thursday Night Football, we've got Dolphins versus Jaguars. I really shouldn't be this excited for the matchup of the Dolphins and Jaguars, but I'm really excited to see which one of these underdogs is ready to step into the spotlight here. Both of these teams are coming off of tight losses to teams that are pretty solid, so they should be relatively sharp. I mentioned fatigue being a big reason why I think there were so many injuries. Don't forget, football game is like being in a car accident, and these guys went and got into another car accident very quickly without enough practice crashes during training camp, so their bodies are responding accordingly. One of the examples that I saw early on was Gardner Minshew last week spinning out and running for a first down. It was a great play. It was on a 4th down, but the man was booking it. But after that awesome play, you could tell he was a little exhausted. He proceeded to fumble the snap and then throw an interception immediately afterwards. The coaches probably should have called for a timeout after the big run, but especially after the fumbled snap. I know it's asking a lot, especially for a Thursday night football game, but hopefully they're able to get the kinks worked out for both teams, and we start to see the quality of football improve on a weekly basis from here on out. In this one, I'm taking the Jaguars 26-24. Texans versus Steelers. The Texans are 0-2, and a lot of people are going to be leaving them for dead, but they were always going to be behind the Chiefs and Ravens. But after losing both of those games, this matchup with the Steelers is close to a must-win if the Texans are going to make the playoffs. They have to be able to beat some of these top-tier AFC teams. And that's right, I think that the Steelers are going to prove over the next few weeks that they are legit contenders. Steelers might lose this game to the Texans, but with road games against the Titans, Ravens, and Cowboys in the next 5 weeks, they're going to surprise at least one of these teams. But I still think that the Steelers are playing better than the Texans right now, so I think the Steelers edge out a win 28-20. Bengals versus Eagles. The Bengals have lost 2 games also, but I think that they've shown a lot of promise in those 2 games, yet it's quite apparent that they lack the overall talent to win these close games against good teams. We're about to find out if the Eagles still have the capability to be a good team. Carson Wentz has looked terrible, and Jalen Hurts should start getting some gimmick looks here soon to try and spark this offense, but if Wentz doesn't show up in this one, the Eagles team is close to going up in flames. I'm going to give the Eagles the benefit of the doubt one more time. Eagles win 24-17. 49ers at Giants. Let's pour some out for old Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Bosa, Solomon Thomas, and Saquon Barkley. Nick Mullins has played surprisingly well in the past, and Jerick McKinnon looks healthy, but I don't know how the 49ers defense makes up for the loss of Nick Bosa. Solomon Thomas would have been a solid backup to slide into his starting spot, but losing him in the same game is almost like a metaphor for Thomas's career in San Francisco. And now they have to make another East Coast trip to play on the same damn field that took their quarterback and best defensive player and play the other New York team. The MetLife Stadium field took the blame from the players, but the fatigue, I think, was a big reason that we saw so many injuries. In a typical year, the 49ers would have stayed on the East Coast in this scenario, but 2020 and all, and COVID-19 protocols wouldn't allow it. So here they are back again with another 1 p.m. Eastern time zone start. The Giants have a chance to steal one while the 49ers adjust to their injuries, but I still think that the 49ers are the better team here, and I think that Shanahan can scheme wins against lesser opponents. 49ers win 26-24. Raiders versus Patriots. I had to see it from the Raiders against a good team to believe it. And that was the signature win in the John Gruden era, the second edition at least. And I was impressed all the way down to kicking the long field goal to make it a double-digit lead instead of some wimpy little pooch punt trying to land it inside the 5. Honestly, I don't even know why I picked the Saints last week. That was dumb. I did say that Michael Thomas's injury was going to be a little bit more serious, but at that point in the week, he did say he was going to play. I guess that's just the occupational hazard of making your picks on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, right? But Derek Carr played really well. Like, he looked really good, but can he do it consistently? And more importantly, I still need to see him do it on the road against a good team. I think this is probably going to be a lot closer than people expect, but I think that this Patriots offense is going to open up a lot against this Raiders defense. Patriots win 35-27. I want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of these pick'em videos, MyBookie. Unless you've been living under a rock, you know the NFL is back and the NBA playoffs are in full swing, which can only mean one thing: it's winning season at MyBookie. I don't know about you guys, but for me, a game is 10 times more exciting when I'm putting my money on it. You guys know I like to go with my gut feeling about a matchup, and sometimes I'm just betting on my team because they're my team. Regardless, whether you've been betting for years or you're ready to play for the first time, MyBookie is your best bet this season. With the biggest selection of online bets and props, they've made it simple and easy to win and withdraw your cash. Right now, they've got a $100K super contest for only $10 an entry, and they're giving away $5,000 in cash prizes every 4 weeks. You'd be crazy not to invest in your sports knowledge with that kind of potential return on your investment. $10 to win thousands? Sign me up. You too can sign up at MyBookie. Just use my promo code NFLRT to claim your 100% deposit match all the way up to $1,000. That means if you put in $100, they'll give you another $100. It's an easy way to jumpstart your bankroll. Whether it's NFL, NBA, or MLB, they've got it all on tap, and it's never too late to get started on your winning season. Shout out to MyBookie for making this all possible. Let's get back to the picks. Titans versus Vikings. The Titans are really playing with fire in these close games. I would like to see them dominate a team, and this is a chance for them to do it. The Vikings are one of the more disappointing teams of 2020, and I hope for the sake of Vikings fans that they move on from Kirk Cousins. Let me check his contract real quick. Holy hell, just kidding. The Vikings are married to Kirk Cousins for at least another year. Kirk Cousins obviously doesn't play defense, but an ineffective offense is not helping this team. I think that Stephon Diggs is missing greatly from this offense, and even though I feel like Kirk Cousins can turn it on randomly against certain teams, but against this Titans defense, I don't see it being this week. Titans win 34-23. Washington versus the Browns. The Washington football team comeback story was very short-lived after they went to Arizona and got outclassed by the Cardinals. Meanwhile, the Browns got things back on track with a Thursday night football game against the Bengals. Yet somehow, the Odell Beckham Jr. trade rumors are still floating around every single week. The Browns have got a tough matchup with the Washington defensive line coming to town. I said I wouldn't pick the Browns for the rest of the season if they lost last week, and I still don't want to pick them. I just don't really like the Washington football team much more in this one. So, home team by default. This one could get ugly. Browns win 17-16. Rams versus Bills. Without Todd Gurley, Sean McVay isn't calling plays to manage the star running back's carries, and he's been able to be a lot more flexible with the offense. And because of it, Jared Goff is playing like a CPU run quarterback on all Madden mode that just can't miss. This Bills team is looking solid too. Stephon Diggs had his first big game last week, and now they are back home against a West Coast team making their second trip across the East Coast for a 1 p.m. Eastern time zone start in as many weeks. I keep bringing up the fatigue, and much like with the 49ers, this is a very tough scenario for the Rams. The NFL schedule makers did not do them any favors with this. I'm betting on fatigue and the Bills defense to be the biggest factors in this one. Bills win 24-21. Bears versus Falcons. Let's just pour some out for the entire Falcons organization. How about that? The Bears, however, they snuck one out against the Giants to get to 2-0, but they've got to be the least convincing undefeated team left. I think that these gritty wins are just going to be their thing, while the Falcons, they could use a little bit more grit in the fourth quarter of games. You've probably heard this stat already, but it was just so outrageous I had to include it. The Falcons are the first team in NFL history to lose a game where they scored 39 points without committing a turnover. Before that epic collapse, teams were 440-0 in that scenario. I know we're always looking for the new 28-3 scoreboard, but I can't be the only one that thinks that the 29-10 screenshot from the third quarter is actually worse than the 20-0 in the middle of the second. We're talking about a 1-point difference here, and the odds of a comeback are pretty decent when you've got an entire half left, but you should be able to maintain a 19-point lead with a quarter and a half to go. In fact, 39-24 with 5 minutes left might be even worse. Or we could just scrap the scoreboard altogether and just put a replay of the Falcons special teams unit staring at the magic spinning ball from the onside kick and just put that on a loop. All jokes aside, I think that the writing is on the wall for Dan Quinn, aka Bald Jason Garrett. However, I don't think that they will go 0-3 and finally put together 60 minutes. Falcons win 29-24. Moving on to the late afternoon games. First up, we've got Panthers versus Chargers. Pour one out here for old Christian McCaffrey. He's on IR, out at least 3 weeks. In my NFL draft winners and losers video, I actually listed Christian McCaffrey as one of the losers from the draft because he was the engine that made this offense go, and they really didn't get him any help by going all defense. I even suggested that the Panthers should put him on ice once they saw that they weren't very good and save him for the future. Without McCaffrey, the Panthers season would be essentially over. But why put all these miles on your offensive centerpiece in a season where you're more likely to compete for the #1 overall pick than a playoff spot? That's just me, but how impressive was Justin Herbert, aka West Coast Daniel Jones, last week? The Justin Herbert hair is here much sooner than we expected, but I can't help but feel sorry for my man Tyrod Taylor. He's got the worst luck. Chargers head coach Anthony Lynn said that Tyrod was the starter after the game still, and I figured that he would have a much shorter leash after seeing Justin Herbert come in and make such an instant impact in the first game at this Chargers new stadium against the alpha team in the division. And honestly, I was ready to flame Anthony Lynn for this. But right before I recorded this video, Adam Schefter reported that the team doctor actually punctured Tyrod's lung when trying to administer a painkiller for his rib injury. And now it looks like Tyrod's probably going to be out for another week. These Chargers team doctors, I don't even know what's going on out there. But yeah, so no wonder Anthony Lynn said that Tyrod was still the starter. That would be some real lameness if the team doctor's mistake cost you a starting job like that. I'm going to go with the Chargers regardless of the quarterback though. Chargers win 23-20. Jets versus Colts. Ugh, gross. No thanks. Colts win 17-13. Cowboys versus Seahawks. Wow, the Cowboys looked awful, and then awesome, and then dumb, and then lucky, and then dumb again, yet somehow they end the game as winners. The comeback was impressive, but even more so considering that they did it without both starting offensive tackles. And the Seahawks, they're a really good football team, maybe the best in the NFC. That might not be breaking news to you because I've been hyping them up for a couple years now, but they are really hitting their stride with the 2020 MVP, Mr. Unlimited himself. I'm calling it now. Actually, I called it in last week's video, but it looks like they are letting Russ cook, so 2020 MVP right there. But for the Cowboys, if there is a time to play in Seattle, it's now when the decibel level of noise being pumped into the stadium is actually being monitored and there won't be any fans in the stands to complement it. This is the type of game where the Cowboys should lose. On paper, it looks like they would lose, but it wouldn't surprise me if they won. However, I can't put too much faith in them after getting lucky against the Falcons. There's still some really questionable coaching decisions in that game. There's a couple matchups in this one I'll be watching for. One is the lack of pass rush for the Seahawks versus the Cowboys' beat up offensive line, and the other is going to be Jamal Adams. Everybody saw the love fest between Earl Thomas and the Cowboys. It might have been one-sided, but then you saw Earl Thomas really show up in that game against the Cowboys and put on a show, even go as far as bowing to the Cowboys sideline. Well, Jamal Adams was also making a big push to become a Dallas Cowboy. Now he's with the Seahawks. Even though he's a much different player than Earl Thomas, you know that he would like to maintain that same level of play and that same standard. So expect a couple of big plays from him. In the end, Seahawks win 31-28. Buccaneers versus Broncos. Tom Brady and company were not as impressive as I expected against the weak Panthers team, but I think it's time to stop expecting this to be just like the Peyton Manning-led Broncos and more like the defensive-led Broncos that had Peyton Manning taking snaps from center. I think that Tom Brady is still better than that final year of Peyton Manning, but this edition of the Bucs might actually be a defensive-minded team. Antoine Winfield Jr. is a defensive rookie of the year candidate and has transformed the Bucs secondary. But real quick, let's pour some out for old Drew Lock and Cortland Sutton. The Broncos are about to go through a real rough patch with Jeff Driscoll. But have no fear, Broncos fans. I think that this is a speed bump for a roster that still has a very bright future. Tom Brady has struggled in this stadium, but I'm still expecting the Bucs to win 2017. Lions versus Cardinals. The Lions looked like they were going to shock the Packers early on in Green Bay and then fell off completely. They're headed to the desert in a rematch of their 2019 Week 1 overtime thriller that ended in a tie. One of these teams is a lot better than that 2019 version and the other one is not. Cardinals win 33-24. And then on Sunday Night Football, we've got Packers versus Saints. And I have to admit, I was enjoying some of the Drew Brees bashing that was taking place on Monday Night Football. I felt like Will Brinson really hit it on the head with this tweet. And you could also add that he was playing without Michael Thomas in this, but that's no excuse. And honestly, I won't be shocked if we see Jameis Winston come in before Michael Thomas gets back. They'll probably allow Brees to go out with some sort of an injury rather than bench him. But this is a team with Super Bowl aspirations, and they're not going to allow a noodle arm to keep them from that just because Michael Thomas got hurt. The Packers, they're getting lucky with the Saints in a primetime Superdome game with no fans. This is one of the easiest scenarios to pick against the road team. I was worried about Aaron Rodgers coming into this season, but he's quickly alleviated those concerns. I at least knew that Brees' arm had lost velocity, but I expected the Saints defense to at least be better to this point. Without Michael Thomas, I just don't think the Saints can keep up. Packers win 35-28. And then Monday Night Football, Chiefs versus Ravens. Wow, what a way to end the week, right? These two teams are the clear-cut favorites to make it to the AFC Championship game, and right now for me it's a legit toss-up. We've actually been spoiled with the amount of times that we've seen Lamar and Patrick Mahomes face off already, but the Chiefs have had the Ravens number in those games despite some really close ones. In a game that showcases the quarterbacks and their respective offenses, I think it's the defense that makes the difference here. The Ravens have got the better defense and should be able to slow down the Chiefs with a focused rushing attack, limiting the number of possessions. Man, I hope this one just lives up to the hype, but I think the Ravens win 28-27. All right, and that's it for week 3. Let's go to the pick'em recap here. So I keep saying the lowest score will be dropped, right? But I've disabled that for these screenshots in this video to do a recap because it's kind of silly to see one of only 2 weeks be dropped. So I disabled that just for the screenshots so we can look at who did what and actually see your total score for the first 2 weeks of the season. So let's take a peek at the pick'em results for week 2. I thought I did really well with 14, but it turns out you needed 15 to be in the winning spot. We had 12 people hit 15 picks last week, including one of the guys that is tied for number 1 overall. We have a 3-way tie, NM Cesaro, Drizzle 88, and David 2. But as you can see, the other guys on this list are only 2 points behind, so it's still anybody's game. But do not forget to make your picks this week. I know I won't. In fact, I think I already will put them in before I even make these videos, so if you want a sneak peek, you can always see them there. And I typically will not change them, even though I wanted to change my Saints pick once I heard that Michael Thomas was out. But this isn't for me. This is for you guys as the fans to potentially win that $100 gift card. It'd look pretty silly if I ended up winning this thing on my own. So I'm really just rooting for you guys to do well. Remember to hit that like button. The goal is 1,000 likes. I would greatly appreciate you guys watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing to these videos. Good luck this week. Good luck to your team. I pray for fewer injuries, and then I will see you all in the next video.